Going to my seat. Hold on.
Alrighty. Good afternoon. Greetings from Chrissy's Voices of Reasons. I have two guests with me, very strong, influential individuals or women in the community. Invited them on today for our topic today, which is reframing and defining strength with the Black woman. So, of course, I want to thank both you ladies for taking your time out today um, to have these candid conversations. Of course, I have my infamous disclosure statement, of course, I like to read before the podcast. So, of course, Chrissy's Voices of Reasons, our organization will invite an array of special guest speakers to our podcast who will share their personal and or professional perspectives for today's topic. The insight shared is not intended to personally treat, diagnose, or treat your specific condition or situation. If concerns arise beyond what we discuss within this podcast, we ask you to reach out to professionals within your region to address your specific concerns. We ask you to remain mindful of their perceptions and views, just as you would like others to be respectful of your thoughts, feelings, and views. And of course, this podcast will display either pre recorded live discussions. So, by recording or commenting or engaging on the platform in any shape, form, or fashion, you've pretty much consented um, to um, to be presented on the podcast in that form. Of course, our guests have agreed, so their consents and everything has been completed on that end. So, ladies, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you for joining me. And of course, I know individuals know me at least to some extent because this is our third podcast. But I would like for you ladies, um, and Miss Miranda, would you like to go first with introducing yourself? Just giving us a little bit about yourself and your background history.
Absolutely. So, my name is Miranda Jones. All of my scholars call me Sister Miranda, but I'm an educator. I've been teaching a little over 11 years. By now, I do teach at the T. Wingate Andrews High School in High Point, North Carolina, where I teach English to some of the most brilliant, beautiful, and black scholars on the planet Earth. Beyond that, I am a community organizer or activist. I am one of the members of Hate Out of Winston. We are most known for our work to bring down an over 100-year Confederate statue in the city of Winston-Salem. In addition to that, we've been blessed to do other work that deals with dismantling white supremacy. So that work includes increasing funds for SOAR, which stands for Successful Outcomes After Release, which is for brothers and sisters who essentially need a second chance, who need good jobs with a livable wage once they've been released from being incarcerated. We've done lots of advocacy work for individuals with exceptionalities, disabilities. We're currently pushing Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools to give a resolution against North Carolina House Bill 187 because it is regressive, and it does not speak to the experience of African American scholars, and it also further marginalizes um, other federally protected groups of scholars. So we're working on that. We've been great advocates for Omnibus, which was a group of Black firefighters, and just so much more. So I'm just privileged to be able to stand amongst other organizers and activists who do the work that I so love to do, which is just serving the people, being a servant leader. Um, Other than that, I don't really know much else to tell the people other than I'm just born and bred and from Winston-Salem, know the city, love the people.
I know that's right, Miss Miranda. And Miss Krishan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Krishan Gore, a country girl at heart, thriving in the city. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor. They changed the acronym. I have to think it out. And I'm also a licensed clinical addiction specialist associate, certified life coach. I currently work with at-risk youth, and I also do some private practice. Um, I just love helping people have a compassion for others.
I know that's right, times two. Two awesome women who's making a significant impact in the community. That's the thing I stand by. I love, I breed. Um, and so I know, of course, our topic. I wanted to create a topic that I know that is near and dear to a lot of individuals. Um, Things that many people don't have candid conversations about that still affects everyday life. So, of course, I came up with this topic because, of course, a lot of times the strength of a woman is overlooked. is foreshadowed. A lot of times it's, sort of mistaken or viewed differently because everyone's perception of what strength looks like within a woman. So I know the world has their particular view of what they see as far as strength within a woman. But I know too personally, even on my end, I know at least strength on my angle what strength looks like. But I wanted to get your view and perception of what strength looks like on your end as a woman.
You want me to go first, or?
However,
So it's so interesting that we're using the word strength, um, and because I grapple with it quite a bit. In fact, first let me say thank you for having me. But I I tell people I challenge this notion of strong black woman, right? Which I know it's not necessarily the topic, but I remember telling a boss last year. She was saying to me, and I'm giving you context because I think it'll make better sense if I explain it this way. There was something she wanted or needed me to do, and she said that, Miranda, you can do it because your colleagues are weak, they're not strong. And I said to her, she was a black woman in educational leadership. I said, I reject that. And I said, and she said, why? I said, because that's very dangerous for black women. I said, for me, I want to be able to be fully who I am in my human experience, in my humanity, right? So I said, I want to have all the emotions, all the feelings that any other woman in this country is able to have, right? So
right,
I said, there are times when I hurt, there are times when I'm in pain, there are times when I cry, there are times when I feel anger. Because I tell people I fully embrace the angry black woman because there are things that make me emphatically angry, right? And so for me, I don't use the language strong or strength, even though I know in my conscious mind I am, right?
hmm
But I think hearing it so much growing up, I felt like that's all I had to be in order to survive. So when I think of strong, I think of strength, I think of survival. And
right,
so I'm a big proponent of taking care of your mental health. I'm a big proponent of counseling. I just saw my counselor yesterday. And she said this to me, and it's so powerful. She said, Miranda, you spent so many years repressing traumatic experiences. She said that they're bubbling up now, so you have to deal with them. But she explained to me, and this is totally y'all area, I don't know nothing about it. That's why I see people who know what they're doing. She said to me, she said, but now they're coming out. She said, and they will come out when you feel safe, right? Because I was telling
hmm
her I heard a song. I never will forget. I heard "Love Is a House" by I think it was called Force MDs, right? And I
hmm
was in Ed McKay's bookstore. And all of a sudden, I said, this is weird thing, right? Where I said, I'm happy, but I'm crying all at the same time in the middle of case. What's really wrong with me? I need to get it together. Because that's what I was taught. You can't do this. It's not what black women do. You gotta snap out of it, right?
right,
And she said, you can only hold it but for so long, right? So I kind of flipped this strength thing for me to say strength is taking care of myself, taking care of my mental health, owning everything that I feel, right?
right,
And
right,
then figuring out how to cope, right? Because as a black woman with PTSD, I have to figure out how to cope and how not to harm myself in the process, right? Because I
right,
told her I wanted to let somebody have it the other week, but I realized I was so self-aware because I told her I'm so mad. I told my counselor, I said, Catherine, I was ready to tell them that. I mean, I was she said, and she was so calm. I'm so glad you're self-aware, Miranda, because that would have harmed you. And I said, well, yes, it would have, Catherine. And so, because anybody who really knows me knows it's really not my personality, but they had really pushed me to my maximum level. And so for me, being strong is not taking everything, try to deal with everything that comes my way, and certainly not eating over it or making poor decisions, but figuring out, okay, how do I sit with this? How do I
right,
navigate this? As opposed to I'm just gonna keep pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. So I think um I'm in a better place because I've learned how to redefine it and not just keep pushing it off. So that's for me strength, as opposed to I'm just gonna be so strong that nothing bothers me. I've learned to say no, this really bothers me, and I don't like this. And she's taught me this thing called SBIR, where it's something like I say, you said it made me feel, and I would like it or I prefer it if you don't do that anymore, or if you would do it or say it like this. So I found a lot of strength in that because I remember telling my counselor, I said, listen, When I first met her, I said, let me cut to the chase. I said, I want no mantras that don't work for me. Don't give me no candle therapy. Candles are beautiful. I'm burning them right now. I, I don't care. I'm not gonna burn no pink, no red. And I even said in the church, and I love God. Don't give me no scriptures. I said you need to give me something to say to people who make me feel a way. I said that's what I need from you. I need to know how to give voice to
Right.
what it is that I'm feeling. So that for me is strength in a nutshell.
Well, I don't think I need to add anything. I think Miss Miranda covered pretty much what I was going to say. And interestingly, because strength in me for me has become self care. And self care to me has become more than just traveling or getting my nails and feet done, going to get a massage. It is prioritizing myself, my peace, my happiness, setting boundaries, and cutting off toxicity. And at any level, it could be mama, sister, dad, and whomever, knowing when to cut it off or set a boundary. Um, one of the things I'm also in therapy, Miss Miranda. Um, my therapist has to keep because my anger can go from 0 to 100 sometimes, because I'm naturally a giver, but takers don't have limits.
Hmm.
So I have began to learn to set limits to that. I can be compassionate, but I have to learn how to say no. I have to learn how to prioritize myself. Last year, I created a mantra for myself, Miss Miranda, and I said, "My peace shall be my priority, and my mental health shall be paramount."
Mm.
And so I have tried to stick by that, whether it be family, foes, frenemies, associates, acquaintances, whomever it may be. That has been one of my things that I have learned. And in doing so, I have become more self aware of what my triggers are and how to cope with those and set a boundary around it. I have therapy on Tuesday. So I have some stuff I have to dump on Tuesday and process through. Because you can love someone
Hmm.
to the degree of hurt and pain inflicted upon yourself because you want so much for someone else. But my daddy always told me, you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. And
Hmm.
so, in doing so, I have learned that I can want something for someone, but he or she must be invested as well. And if they're not invested, I can't want it more for them than they want it for themselves. That has been applicable in my career, profession, family, all areas of my life. So I'm learning through all life domains how to be strong in a different aspect, like she said. I also feel like it's a woman's creed by nature that we carry this S on our chest. I know the S is for Superman normally. He has it on his chest, but the women carry that. And we feel like we have to endure a lot of things. We have to drop our what we got going on, our schedules, and revamp them and accommodate everyone else besides ourselves. Um, so I'm learning that it's okay to put me first. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say I really don't feel like coming to that today. I am learning that if I say I'm going to something and then it comes and I don't feel like going, don't show up, and that's okay. That's okay. So, kind of sort of, I think it kind of blends somewhat with people pleasing to a certain degree. In strength, I think that's what a lot of it has become for people is people pleasing. But I've been preaching to a lot of my clients recently, and I'm having to practice it. Self care, boundaries, no. And Miss Miranda said it. We call it assertiveness, is what we call it when we teach our youth. I don't like it when you. It makes me feel. So I'm also learning to do that in dating and other aspects of my life. So it's been different for me being in therapy. To be honest, it started off as grief therapy, has blossomed into other areas of my life that has been helpful. And I'm like, what took me so long? I should have did this years ago. It's been very helpful. It's been a very good dumping ground for me because I think naturally people come to me to talk to me. I have this natural aura. I feel like I got a halo on my head because sometimes I can be in the grocery store everywhere. It just people just talk to me. I think that my daddy's spirit lived on too because he never met a stranger. But I'm also learning that I don't have to be a dumping ground.
And I think that's where a lot of individuals find or think that a woman's strength is what we're capable of handling. Even as a counselor and as a mother, I think I've learned throughout the years that, you know, I think people create an image of what they feel like you can handle based upon how you carry yourself, based upon how you get things done within a certain time period, based upon the things that they've seen you endure in the past, and think that, okay, well, if she's capable of handling these capacities, then what else can she can hold anything. And it creates this disillusion that you're built to carry when in actuality you probably are. And I've seen, even with talking with other women, is like they're at the cusp of breaking. They're at the cusp of breaking. They're at their brink. All it takes is one little slight feather just floating, and that one particular thing that can break. And so I think even as a black woman on my end, I've learned that I think initially we you felt like because people kept this image of you of as far as what you're supposed to look like or how you're supposed to carry things. So you develop a mindset that everything is supposed to be okay. And if it's not okay, then something is wrong with you. I think with age and wisdom and knowledge and of course background with degrees in education, I've learned to put before anything that it's okay not to be okay, even as a black woman, whether it's in my professional setting, whether it's in my personal settings. Um, that normalizes the fact that I'm no different whether I'm a licensed mental health counselor or whether I am a mother, whether I am a sister, brother, cousin, whatever I am, that I am setting my foot in the ground of indicating like at the end of the day, I'm a person. I'm a person with
Mhm.
feelings.
Absolutely.
I'm a person that goes through stressors no differently than every other person that goes through. So with that being said, it's been mindful of not placing this placeholder and making me feel, because that's what a lot of people have a tendency of doing. They place people on these pedestals. So with us, I feel like it's taken us, I don't know about you guys, but I can at least say on my end, it's taken me years to come to a place of recognizing what things are acceptable and what things are not. And of course, in other cases, there's other women, maybe in their younger years, that may be going through those same pathways that we went through um, as young black women that are probably struggling with some of the same things that we used to struggle with before we've learned the skill set of normalizing certain things, separating ourselves from things that we shouldn't be attached to us, and 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 putting ourselves first. Because I think that is something that I think I've come to master. I've come to master with time. So um, I think that leads me into my next question of I think the what you've experienced in life that has defined your strength. What, because we didn't get here overnight. One thing I've known is with my strength is going through certain obstacles, um, going through certain things that you probably wouldn't have never thought that you would go through, and then taking the opportunity to learn from it, then to apply it. I think people sort of mistaken that piece. They feel like that when they go through obstacles that this is wrong, that this is not normal. So when they go through it, is this, I don't know what word to use for it. Um, it's not normal. It's not normal to experience some of these things, but they fail to realize like, okay, it's a build up to who you were before and what you're becoming. So in reviewing your life in your younger years and then where you are now as this skilled and diverse woman, what have you experienced that has helped to define your strength in today's time?
For me, I think my childhood has developed my strength in a positive and somewhat, and maybe I shouldn't say negative, but revamping it in my own personal life. Growing up in a household, a dual parent household, I saw certain things and certain roles, but I don't necessarily ascribe to a lot of the traditional things now. But it made me who I am because I watched my mother and father in their marriage. I watched them in their church background. I watched them in, like, as far as their employment, and I watched how they operated in the community. Now, some of the things I have adapted, and some of them I have adopted to fit my own personal life now. One of the other things I think has been the biggest thing for me that built my strength is caregiving for my father until his death. There were many days I was in grad school at the time when he first got sick. Well, got sick in undergrad as well. I left, went to community college, went back, and still graduated on time. Then he got sick later in life, and I was in grad school. Um, Seeing him fight until the day he took his last breath, I think increased my tenacity to thrive and survive. Um, if he didn't give up despite all the obstacles he's faced, I'm like, I know that I have to fight as well. Because there, sometimes when you get those grueling diagnoses or medical conditions that seem chronic, that, they say, oh, you're in this stage, or, there's not a positive prognosis for things. Seeing him fight helped me to fight. I think for me now, as I'm maturing and still growing and evolving, being in therapy has built my strength. Um, because there, like you said, there are a lot of things I think we internalize
Hmm.
that we don't know have an adverse impact on us until maybe you get to talking about some of those things, and then you realize it's connected to the root of a different problem that may have stemmed from years ago. Um, and that has helped me to build my fortitude. I have this thing that my tests shall become my testimonies. My trials and tribulations shall become my stepping stones and stumbling blocks, not stumbling blocks. And my thorns shall be a part of my crown.
Hey, talk now, or you preaching one, but I'm listening.
So even now, I've had some battles this week in my own personal health, and doctors have not been able to figure those things out. And I literally said to my doctor on yesterday, I shall have a but God testimony. You're gonna keep searching, you're gonna keep looking, and you'll never ever find it because you know what? I will be a witness to someone. My story shall be God's glory.
Wow.
Um, oh, were you done, Krishan? I don't want to cut you off because
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
you were preaching. So for
Passing the
me,
mic.
it's so interesting because I don't think there was ever one particular defining anything for me. I was just telling my counselor the other day. Um, I kind of marked time. I marked my childhood by really traumatic events, actually. So I told her, I said, I experienced multiple instances of sexual violence as a child, but there's one really big one that I always say who I was before what happened in that basement and who I was after was not, that's not the same Miranda. And so she asked me, she says, who do you think that was? So we kind of had discussion about that. And I said, I don't ever think I can get her back. And so I said, I always kind of mark things. Well, this happened this year, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, because I am the daughter of I was the daughter of a crack addicted mother, and so experiencing so much transition, um, there was just an onslaught of just trauma, that I didn't realize that I really was in survival mode for a big chunk of my life, and the more I reflect, I think about the ways I thought, and the decisions I made, many of them very poor decisions, some mistakes, some just kind of mistakes in ignorance, right? And a lot of times I was reacting and responding out of pain and out of trauma, right?
Right.
Um, and I didn't realize it. And I wasn't cognizant of the low self esteem and the low self worth. I just knew I got to survive here. And so for me, it was, how do I get grown? How do I get grown and not be addicted to some drug? Like those are like my big goals. And so I made kind of certain vows to myself that things I just wouldn't do, right? I just said I got to be able to take care of myself. And I didn't have really any big plans, even though I had a dynamic paternal grandmother raise me. But you had this little 5 foot woman, just this dynamic woman of God who she didn't know anything about trauma. She didn't know anything about, how do you raise a child who's had all this, a child who, even though I was a child, I had the body of a woman. She didn't know. All she knew was you take her to church, you feed her good food, and you pray. That was it. And I tell people, as rudimentary as it sounds, that formula actually worked, right? Because there was I knew that nobody was gonna put us out because she paid her bills on time, right? I wasn't gonna come home and there was gonna be a padlock on the door. So there was certain kind of a certain consistency that I think I needed there. Um, but I will say, um, it wasn't until I really began to get in counseling that I kind of understood, oh, you've been in survival mode all this time. And so now it's like you kind of got to step out of it, right? And then it was so many other layers, that I kind of had to, figure out how do I kind of define myself and my strength, because then I had to also take ownership for my own behavior, right? So that was like, oh, so I had to start accepting, okay, well, there's many times you've been the victim, but you've also been the villain too. And I ain't like that. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, when I heard it, like, villain, me? No. And so it was like, but how could you not look at what you've been taught, look at what you've experienced, right? So trying to figure all that out. And I think I'm finally getting to a place to where I can kind of take all of it and figure out, okay, this is what has made me who I am, right? Um, but I also don't want to stay in some of those places, right?
Right.
And so it wasn't I mean, just as an educator, a lot of times I was responding to systemic issues, but I was responding as a 7-year-old traumatized, and not at the time a 35-year-old who has to realize, this is a job. You know what I mean? These people aren't responsible for your trauma, or maybe you are misinterpreting what's happening because you're looking at it through kind of a skewed lens, right? And so having to, spend years, and I spent years on a, therapist or counselor, I don't know the difference, but on the couch trying to figure it out, right? And now taking that responsibility for myself. And so trying to figure out, well, in the African tradition, I can't remember the quote verbatim, but it basically says that um I get to define who I am. And so with that, kind of taking back my power, right? And having that agency. I think it goes something like, it's not what you call me, is what I respond to. And so I've kind of found strength in knowing that I've had all of these experiences, but that's not who I am. It's made me, but it's not who I am, and I certainly don't have to stay there. And so kind of where do I want to go next? You know what I mean? And so I remember once I started feeling like I was kind of moving kind of from some of those from some of that survival experience, I actually took down a lot of old pictures because it just hit me. I'm not there anymore. I'm here. Right. And so kind of always telling myself, you're not there, you're here. And what does this mean for you in the present moment? And what can I do with that to really help somebody else? Because I think people don't really always want a victim. I think people want a victor, but I like to try to kind of carve out a healthy balance, right? And so again, just trying to figure out how do I continue to define myself for myself? How do I move forward? Um and how do I kind of continue with this kind of self-awareness of knowing, okay, all of these things happen, but they don't have to control the rest of my life.
So it sounds like, I mean, kind of like she was saying, you take the compilation of things that have happened, ups, downs, failures, successes, and then you make it transformative. That's what I have had to do to find my own strengths. Because again, some of the things I believed when I was 18, 21 are no longer the same now that I'm 43. They're not applicable in the same aspect. I've taken off those rose-colored glasses, and now I'm able to see them through a different, clear lenses. So I think the construct of strength in and of itself is going to be differentiated based on childhood, personal experiences, all of that for every one of us.
And I will add, I think the biggest piece for me has also been acceptance, because I used to be really like, okay, God, why do I show up in the world like this, in this body? Why can't I have had this experience? This really isn't fair. This isn't what I asked for. I just wanted normal, right? My
Right.
life would be different if I had this kind of different formula. I just wanted a normal mother who did normal things. Because I
Right.
tell people I'm a child of the '80s. I grew up when crack was at its apex. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember the commercials, i- children, they went home, they had Oreos and milk. That wasn't my experience, right? And
Right.
so I was like, I just want to go home and sit at the table, even though I was in the Boston projects with the lime green walls, mustard color walls, and do my homework. Why can't I just have normal, right? Even there were friends of mine, I would assume their parents, their mothers probably, because there wasn't a lot of fathers over there, probably didn't have cookies and milk, but they had a mother that met them at the door, right?
Right.
My mother probably was gone and maybe gone for days at a time, right? And I was angry about that for a long time. And God, if I just had, if I was just 50 pounds lighter, or whatever, just whatever the case would be, and I felt like it would be different, life would be better. Until eventually I said, but that's just not your story. And so once I kind of understood it and I accepted it, I had peace, because I used to get so angry that I would literally have migraines. Like, if I remember riding the bus home in high school, I would ride the city bus over there to Northwood Estates, because I was in Carver's district, but I went to Reynolds, and I would get myself so angry and so worked up, my heart would be racing and my head would just start hurting. And then by the time I got in my early 20s, I started experiencing a different kind of headache, that sickening headache. So much so I went to the doctor. I said, "Hey, I've never had a headache like this. This is something different." And that's when I was first diagnosed with migraines. And so, but of course, I didn't really have the access to be able to get good treatments. I always tell Black folks there's something about having insurance, any kind of insurance, that changes everything for you,
Everything.
everything. And so, getting insurance, particularly when I became an educator, and then being able to seek out, mental health and therapy, was just so instrumental for me in so many ways. Not only just from, because I was able to coordinate a team of medical professionals, and then of course being able to advocate for myself, but then even
Let's say
within
self-advocacy.
except because I mean, as a diabetic, I was mad at my mother for that. Like, I wouldn't have been at obese at 8 if you had just been, da 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 da. And so it was kind of like, but Miranda, you can't go back, but you can go forward, right? So just kind of just accepting it, and then I found the more I accepted it, the frequency of those migraines decreased like exponentially, because I don't sit and just kind of dwell, and I'm not in the loading bar anymore. Like, I'm not just kind of in that really low place to
Mhm.
where I'm just like just
Get a
so angry.
picture
One
of the
time
little
I
boy.
was mad at God. Like, it's like, I don't have time for you, and I don't have time for this. Like, I would just be so angry. And so I think once I released it, and I did it on my time, because I tell people one of the statements I hate, I cannot stand when people say, "Let it go." And you want to send me into a rage, I had to learn to say, "I'm moving on." I know it probably is
Hmm.
more than the same, but it's, people tell me to let it go. I used to be so mad. But when I made the decision to move on and define me and kind of find strength in my own way, I felt better, right? Because people always say, "You're doing it for you, not for the other person."
Mhm.
I don't want to hear that mess. Because
Right.
you always hear in the Black community, like, I would hear that on the one hand, but then I would hear people say things, "Oh, but that's still your mama." So,
Right.
or they would say, "She laid down and had you." So it would kind of be like these mixed messages.
Yes.
So I'm like, "Well, what do you want me to do with this?" So I tell you what, I ain't gonna do nothing with it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, I'm gonna hold on to it and she can go to hell. Like, that's really how I felt, right? But then once
Right.
I kind of figured out, well, not focusing on her going to hell, and how about focusing on you going to heaven, or you at least having peace. And so that was for me. How do I center myself? And I wanted and needed and deserved peace. That was how I was able to kind of move through some of that.
And I just want to piggyback on a couple of things Miss Miranda said that I heard that stuck out to me was letting go versus moving on. And I think that is very important because letting go doesn't mean like it disappears. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that's not possible. I think what people need to realize is that you can heal and learn how to move forward, but that just means you know how to cope differently with it.
Right.
For example, my thing is grief, and my dad's death anniversary will be 3 years in April. And it kind of POs me sometimes. When people are like, "You still struggling with your daddy's grief?" Absolutely. It wasn't like he was an absent parent. He was there all 43 years of my life, or 40 years of my life, because he died almost 3 years ago. But um, so I'm never gonna just forget him. I just learned how to deal with the situation differently. And then, as far as Lodabar, for those who people don't know what Lodabar, it's the low place that's referenced in the Bible. And I think that is in many different aspects. That doesn't just mean place as in a physical place. That could be situational, that could be emotional, that could be mental, that could be financial. But what I do know about Lodabar is The Bible also says that you walk through the valley. You can't set up tent there and build a home there. You got to do something to move. So in order to move from Loda Bar, you got to do something. And I think that's where it comes in for me for the mental health aspect. Culturally, I understand the stigma that is associated with mental health, especially in the African American culture, and just the stigma associated worldwide. So I have tried to be a therapist that have tried to destigmatize that. And I pride myself on trying to not make it feel like a therapy session so much where people have to come in tense. I try to make it feel as natural, like you're just talking to another homegirl, homeboy, whatever you want to look at me as, and we just talking this out. Okay. Don't come in with your when they come in with their shoulders squared. I did this the other day with the lady. So we're gonna do an exercise before we even get started. We're gonna move our shoulders and shake it off and do a few things before we start. Because I want you to loosen up. It's okay. Because just because I have credentials doesn't make me any different from you. I normalize it. I'm human before I'm a therapist. And so I want you to understand that when you come in, it's okay to not be okay. But we're gonna work towards you being okay or better at feeling okay about the fact that you're here. And so I just really feel like that this is a good platform for us to help some of those people who may not feel as comfortable, and hopefully they will get the messages that we are all sharing here about the importance of some of those titles, and that we put on things that it's not that big. It's not that big. That doesn't define who you are. And I think in listening to Miss Miranda and her childhood experiences, I would even go a step further and say, despite what you've been through, all of those things, um, it defines you to a degree, to the aspect of it has helped you find your purpose and your
Absolutely.
calling, but it doesn't define who you are.
Right.
I just think it pushes us closer to our purpose when we realize that, okay, I may be able to help somebody else that may have been going through the same things, but may not feel comfortable sharing it. It gets you to your purpose. I understand clearly because mental health chose me. I didn't choose mental health. I wanted to be a pediatrician and went through all the chemistries, everything. But that's not a calling that was placed on my life. That's not my purpose. That's not my destiny. It's something else. And that's how I'm able to reach people because it's a natural thing. It's not forced. It's just something I get up and I can do it with ease. And there are times when I do it for free, believe it or not, because I got this halo that everybody feels comfortable talking to me. So there are some free therapy sessions given quite often.
That's what we do within the community. Um, it sounds like both of you, and I even on my end speaking, we both have gone through some things in life that initially we did not know was forming and shaping us in a way that would be so impactful later um, in our futures. And of course, that's become our strength now. The fact that it's paved us in a way that we are able to be so resourceful to other individuals that may be going through. So that was the positive aspect coming out of it. Um, what would you say to that young woman, whether she's a young mother or whether she is going through her own source of trauma that she hasn't quite figured out? um, and she's trying to pave her way to try to heal, to be able to get to that place to where she feels strong enough to be able to go and navigate her day to day. What message would you give her? Um, Going off of what you've experienced firsthand, what you've learned along the way in life, just through experiences, and what you've applied just from your day to day life to be able to get you from a place of healing to where you feel strong enough to where you're able to do what you do within the community and with families.
Well, I try to empower people to start where you are. That's all you can do. I mean, start with the pieces you have. And it might seem like a lot of moving puzzle pieces right now, but eventually they will come together and you'll see the full picture. Um, I try to support them in what we call their self efficacy, just believing in themselves. Because I think, again, the loader bar thing is so real that we misperceive that everybody just kind of wants to stay stuck. Sometimes they don't know how to move forward. And sometimes they just need that extra push or somebody that believes in them. I tell a lot of my youth when I'm working with them, if you don't have hope in yourself and believe in yourself right now, grab hold to mine until you can get your own.
Um, I would say trust yourself. And really kind of lean into who you are and never stop seeking knowledge. So some of the things that helped me when I was right before I became a teacher, I was about to be homeless, and I spent a lot of time alone. Just because I've always been the one that was rejected by my family, I never was accepted. I don't know why. It's just the story of my life. God is good. And so I read good books. But books might not be for everybody. For some people, it might be a sermon, it might be music, whatever it is. I think that God gives us something that He's going to reach us some kind of way. That's just one of my core beliefs. So, um, crazy as it sounds, there was a book called The Search for Significance that I read that was so impactful um to me and for me, um kind of trying to figure out uh what does my life mean, right? My grandmother used to always say, she would say to me, Miranda, you have a Daniel story, Daniel in the Bible. She says you have a Daniel story. And so reading that book helped me kind of understand a little bit more about why it was significant to God and why people, today they may love you, tomorrow they may hate you, and that's okay, right? Trying to kind of sit with that. And then I'm a huge Y'all Van Zant fan. Some people aren't, but Peace from Broken Pieces. Like when I read that book, like I said, it was close to being homeless. I never forget. I was, in a house where I couldn't even pay the rent, working at Kmart. The kitchen floor was rotten. Couldn't pay to keep the heat on. I had a space heater. I mean, it was bad, but I survived. I survived. It was really bad, but I would sit in the corner drinking my coffee and I would read Peace from Broken Pieces. And it was very healing for me. I also was reading Woman Thou Art Loose. And so just several pieces of literature. And I tell folks, you might not like everything, you might not agree with everything, but take what you can, leave the rest, right? And so I just began to look for certain books that I thought would speak to me. Sometimes there were recommendations, and if they didn't, like people. I think I saw something about Eckhart Tolle, wasn't really my thing. A couple other things, Caroline Meese later on, not really my thing. But I found some books that I thought could speak to my specific experience, and so um, that really really helped me. I would later find myself in Overeaters Anonymous. And one of the things that it really kind of helped me do was just kind of structure my life. Believe it or not, I think that there's some power to your life having structure. Um, and so, like every day I get up and make my bed because to me that means there's some orderliness about my life, right? So
Right.
certain things I'm going to do every single day without fail. Um, you know, Self care, taking care of myself. That's my counselor. She always says, "Yo, you get your hair done, you wear your jewelry." And I said because so many days as a child I couldn't. You know, I didn't have a mother to, how most girls have a mother and they doll them up and comb their hair. And I tell people to this day I don't know how to comb my hair. I pay somebody. Shout out to my stylist, my loctician McKay. I can't do. I can shampoo it. That's it. Put some oil in it. That's it. I don't do nothing else. I don't do nothing else. That's it for me. But a lot of other things I had to kind of teach myself, and so I really believe that if you seek out ways to help yourself, I think that as a spiritual person, God will fulfill His promise to you in whatever way that you are willing to receive that. And so, I know some sisters who found their healing just literally in reading the Bible. I needed a little something else. I need, you gotta, hey, God, I'm not this ain't working. So give me something else. And so for me, it really was those pieces of literature, but it's because He made me into. I'm a reader, and so that's the way words speak to me. Words have power, right?
Right.
And I think that there are, some people. For some people, it might be um other things. And so I would challenge anybody to figure out who you are uniquely and what speaks to you uniquely. For me, I love all things African American. So I gravitated to literature that spoke to African Americans healing, African American women healing, all of that. And so that's kind of where I found myself. And I would say, like, don't limit yourself. Like some people say, why are you going to Overeaters Anonymous? And at first I was a little bit ashamed because I was like, this crazy. This for white people. Like what you like? I mean, I literally was like, so you saying you can't never stop eating? Like, I mean, it was a sister who told me about it. I was like, I never will forget. I was embarrassed to be going to the church. I was like, okay, like this is like food is not a drug. Like I was like, crack is a drug, heroin is a drug. Like macaroni and cheese is not a drug. I was like, this is so ridiculous. I mean, and I hope that people forgive me. I probably was rude to those people the first few sessions, and I was judgmental, and I was just like, oh my god, like, oh my god, I can't even believe I'm in this room. And so and honestly, they were saying things like, talk to the God of your understanding, and they were like, oh my God, it's love, and I'm like, what? I was horrible. I was just like, this is just the most ridiculous mess. I mean, so and I didn't know like how do I adhere to these rules because they really do have rules and things you can't repeat what you hear in those rooms and all of those things.
Right.
You hear such painful stories, right? And so then I would share my own painful stories, and that's actually kind of how I came to therapy. It was actually a white girl who said, "You here?" And she was, oh no, yeah, it was white. It was a no, it was two of them. It was a white girl who was a counseling student at Wake Forest, and then it was an older white lady. She said, "Let's go out for coffee sometime, Miranda." Okay, let's go. We go through Starbucks, and she said, we started talking about something in the Asian tradition, and I was like, okay. And so she said, "You know what? You need a counselor. You don't need because like I was getting deep up in there." She said, "No, you need a counselor." And the other girl, she said, "I want to recommend somebody." And that's kind of what started the ball rolling. And so I think, believe it or not, even though they didn't look like me, I think God sent them to me to help me get what I needed. So I would tell anybody, don't close yourself off. Because
That's right.
sometimes what might seem crazy, it's not crazy. And you can really bless others. I had people once I would post about it, would inbox me, tell me more about this OA thing. Don't know what happened, but some kind of way they were curious, right? And so you just never know. So I think that when you want something better for yourself, I really believe that God would just meet you where you are. I really, really believe that because I've seen it happen.
I think the insight that I would give to a young woman or young mother would be not to find strength in the obstacles that you're going through. Um, a lot of times people look at that, and because they're looking at how they're handling those situations, they're defining that to be their strength. And when it's not their strength, it's just placed there to
Mhm.
teach you, to elevate you, to get you a place to where you're able to handle things in a way that, which I feel like you're equipped to. We all go through things. And of course, even down with depression, like I said, all of us struggle with some capacity of depression. It's not one of those things that just one particular person has depression, another person doesn't. Use those situations that you go through and not look at it as that you have failed in life, that you have that I know a lot of individuals use this mindset of why me. And a lot of times it's sort of taking that scenario and flipping it instead of saying, why me? Why not me? You know,
Mhm.
what purpose am I serving with going through this situation? What is it preparing me for future wise? So I think at the end of the day, it's switching your mindset. I'm not looking at everything as a negative, even though I'm not taking away from the trauma side of things that you were exposed to. But it's taking it from a negative aspect and placing and finding a purposeful meaning behind it and allowing that to be your driving ambition for redefining, reframing who you are as a woman and knowing where strength is and not where you think it once was. So I think that would be message to um, a young mother, or even not even a young mother. It can be just a woman in general who's looking at this podcast. I know we went over quite a few topics, but is there anything that I didn't bring up that you guys think would be insightful to share on this podcast with someone viewing?
I think we covered quite a bit.
I
I'm sure we can come
know.
up with some
I
more.
know.
Um,
Well, I know too, you ladies are doing quite a bit in the community. Is there any information that you guys would like to share in regards to? I know, Miss Miranda, you're doing some miraculous work in Winston-Salem, and I know, Miss Krishan, you're here in the Wake County area, licensed therapist, and I know you're able to serve individuals throughout North Carolina. Is there any information that you would like to share regarding your service or if there's any way that people want to make an impact in what you're doing and they want to team up with you, is there anything that you would like to share and use that as a platform for others to reach out to you?
So first of all, I know we're coming upon Black History Month. For me, it's Black History Year. We're Black 365. I think it's incumbent upon Black women to understand that our history is expansive, and we should make it our business to become knowledgeable about what we call queendom. Look up great queens like Ya Asante Wa, Queen Candace, just so many others that we need to kind of know about, and we need to teach our children about, so that they know who they are and not necessarily believe what the media tells them they are. I'm committed to that work in my classroom, and I've seen what it does for our children, for our girl children as well as our boy children as well. So I think that that's something that I want to say because I know we'll be hyper focused on that, for the month of February. And let me also say, let us look for black-owned businesses that support the black community before we go spend our dollars, our good black dollars, with some of these other businesses that are going to put up T-shirts and other kind of memorabilia with our beautiful melanated faces on it. That is just no more than exploiting our community. So I think that's important for our people to remember that. But what I would ask folks to do is to continue to follow Hate Out of Winston on Instagram. We will be having a panel coming up in February with James Pope, professor at Winston State University. He will be talking.
Wow.
He, as well as several other folks, not only professors, just community members, because we know there's a wealth of knowledge in the communities. Fannie Lou Hamer talked about, I don't have a PhD, but I got God. And so we're gonna
I know
have
that's right.
a panel set up by my good comrade Olivia Doyle and my other comrade Root, who's a student at Wake Forest University, where they will be talking about how Israel supplies weapons to the United States law enforcement, which does shut down Black resistance movements. So people need to be aware of that. And so, as somebody out there who challenges state sanctioned violence, they're going to be talking about that and what that means for us. And hopefully, we will also be talking about gentrification because a lot of our neighborhoods are kind of taken over, and we kind of sit back and let it happen. And just something I want to leave folks with is, ask yourself, why is there never new schools built for Black children? I'm not talking about revitalized schools. I'm not talking about a school with some new bricks, some new paint. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about brand new schools. Why isn't there an uproar? I look in my city, and Atkins is a white school now, over in a Black neighborhood. And so, are we paying attention? That's a question that I would ask us. If not, let's get to paying attention. Let's get to where we're showing back up and we're holding people accountable. Our votes aren't cheap. Our votes are laced with the blood of our ancestors, and so that is important. So just follow us on IG. You can also follow us on Facebook. That's where you get the latest updates. And meet us at City Council, meet us at the school boards, because we ain't going nowhere.
I know that's right. Miss Krishan, is there anything you would like to share?
No, if you need therapy, it's okay to seek out therapy. I am working on a couple projects myself. I have a strong affinity for women. I also have developed a niche for caregivers, as a caregiver for my father. So I think the resources for that niche is far and few between, and it needs to be further developed. Because caregiver burnout is real. Um, and then there are no resources. And if they think you got an inkling of money, you definitely can't get anything. So
Right.
I would like to really focus on some community development for those areas. And the elderly population has become something I've been interested in lately. Geriatrics, just after watching, my dad was old, but he was older, and just watching him as his health declined and the lack of support and resources for those populations have become on my radar as new niches. So I am looking to further develop some things in those areas, as well as our youth, because I just feel like it's different now. Some of the things they say and do, we wouldn't, and they don't do the things we used to. We played outside a lot more. They're into like video games, and I think a lot of our youth get lost because they're looking for validation. They're looking for belonging. They're looking to fit in somewhere because home is not home always, and people don't realize that. On these winter breaks and stuff like this, I get concerned with a lot of my kids because home is not always safe either. So some of these people, need some resources where they can go and there be safe havens or there be food, hot meals, because backpack buddies is not available when school is out.
Yeah.
And I know they try to put like spots, when they're out of school sometimes, but just having the resources that people can access freely, whether you're in the highest income bracket or whatever, because we know everybody needs help and everybody needs somebody.
Absolutely, and agreed. And I guess on my end, I'll leave with this piece. Of course, Chrissy's Voices of Reason is actually birthed from our nonprofit organization that's put in place from Chrissy's Place of Refuge. Um, a lot of it is going in and trying to go and reshape and redefine the view of the home setting, those things that people struggle with, that they're needing help with. And hopefully, between candid conversations and resources, that we open a door to new opportunities. Of course, just to give a quick rundown, of course, I came from government assistance. I was on every ounce of government assistance you can think of, not growing up in the home setting with my mother, but as a single mother, I was definitely on all of those resources, and I worked diligently to pave the way to open new doors, along with the help of my family. Through them, I was able to graduate, get trades degrees, so that support to help elevate me to where I'm in the position that I'm in now. And of course, I've also understood um, the dilemma of the middle to high income families with taxes and those reliefs that they're looking to receive. So I am hopeful. I'm hoping that the community will back me, because if one hand washes the other hand, with understanding that every individual that's on government assistance is not something that they want to desire. Some is just through generational curses that's been recycled over and over again, and people are looking for opportunities for growth. But at the same time, those opportunities are limited. So what we're hopeful of is that in time that we'll be able to provide these resources to where individuals will have all of those components that they need in order to become self-sufficient, to be able to get trades and degrees and be able to become part of the working population, and in hopes that eventually in time that it will give the middle to high income families the relief that they need, because the scale should hopefully tip. So I'm asking you guys to follow me. I am on Instagram, on Facebook. And of course, I have two different, of course, Chrissy's Place of Refuge, and of course, Chrissy's Voices of Reason is the podcast. So I definitely like to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank my guests, Miss Miranda and Miss Krishan, for their insightful resources that they've given us as far as knowledge and background history, and of course, what it looks like as far as a woman and what strength looks like. I know from your insight that you shared that is definitely going to be something that someone who watches this podcast can use and apply, and even look within their own lives and determine what they need to do in order to revamp um, what strength looks like on their end. I want to thank you again, Miss Miranda, Miss Krishan. You've definitely been a blessing to me for tonight. And hopefully, I look forward to other conversations that we can have. Especially, I think I have one, Miss Miranda, on the gentrification that is coming up that I'm looking to have. So, if you and any other panel guest is interested on that aspect as well, I would love to have conversations like that. Again, we can't offer change unless we have conversations about what needs to be changed, and no matter how uncomfortable that is is necessary. So once again, thank you guys, and I look forward to you guys on my next podcast. Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me.
Thank you for joining.